You have arrived at Locally Sourced.
All right, Middletown, welcome back to episode number 9 of Middletown's official podcast, Locally Sourced. And I have been sitting here for I don't know how long now, almost an hour, I think. And I wish that hour had been recorded because I am sitting here with Middletown's own, a great guy, one of the funniest people I know. But a great business owner, a great friend, and a great resident in the hilarious Vinnie Brand is with us today.
Thank you, Tony. And while you think you wished it was recorded, I can assure you that if we put that out, there would be ramifications. And you'd be like, I'm Vinnie Brand. Thank you very much. It's a great introduction. I'm so happy to be here.
Thanks for joining us. And, it's so, full circle for me to have you here because, I've known you since before I was an elected official. And we were just talking about one of the first times that I had seen your stand up. But through the pandemic and coming and doing a set for the employees of the town during the pandemic and poking fun of me for being a millennial and all those other things. But also, just being somebody that, at a moment's notice, you can bounce an idea off of and have that in your back pocket. So appreciate you taking the time. And I know you got a lot of businesses that you run. So, and a lot of kids to take care of.
I'm gonna tell you something funny. When I first met you, I thought you were a high school senior, and then when you won a position, I'm like, wait, that high school senior ran and won? What is our town doing? And then someone said, no, he's an adult. I'm like, we gotta sign him up for a hamburger or something. He's such a young-looking guy. How old are you now?
34.
Yeah, I mean, so how old? I'm sorry to turn.
I was 27.
You were 27 when you won.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was so funny. And I mean, you're such a good mayor for the town. You're such a good presence for the town. But I will tell you, I remember clear as a bell going, hey, does he shave? Does the mayor have a razor? A little bit.
Well, you'll appreciate this. I'm at a wedding. Okay. So this is mid-pandemic. I'm at a wedding. And it's a backyard wedding, and with a close friends of Alana and I, and we, their whole thing got canceled because of the pandemic. So, this is probably 2021, I guess, either 2020, 2021, and I'm now mayor a couple of years, 3 years, I guess, at that point, and I'm sitting at this table, and this woman says to me, she goes, now I know. You're Mayor Tony Perry. And I said, yeah, and she's like, oh, it's very nice to meet you. She goes, but boy, you look a lot better in Middletown Matters. The newspaper that comes to your house. She goes, your headshot makes you look so much better than you do in person.
Oh my God.
So I'm thinking to myself, well, this wedding just started and this lady is already like, she's gone, and I'm like, well, thank you, I guess. Like, what do you say to that? But I was like, thinking about it now. I'm 6 years in, and I'm thinking to myself, God, what would she say about the way I look now? But crazy.
It's it's funny when people are at a wedding, especially a couple drinks in, and the filters drop.
Yeah,
and then they start saying things. You're like, oh, now I know why you're not at my Christmas party because I had forgotten, but now I remember. And being a public figure, I was on the board for a long time.
How many years were you on the Board of Education?
7 years.
Wow.
7 years, because when I ran, it was an April election, and it got put on the very next week, and then they changed it to November.
Right.
And so I did 6.5 or 7 years. It felt like 7 decades. But I enjoyed it. I did enjoy it. I remember being one of the very first things we did was we had to get to a personnel meeting. And I've never done anything real in my life. I really I haven't. So I have to go into every situation and learn. And I've become accustomed to it. So if someone said to me tomorrow, can you do open heart surgery? My instinct is, Yeah. I cut somebody open if I have to. So we go to a personnel meeting, and I can't use the real name. There's an individual, and that individual is going to be non-renewed. But the individual, and I'm brand new. So first of all, I'm at a personnel meeting, and to be perfectly honest with you, I'm going, this is exciting. And so they start asking questions, and this guy is going to get non-renewed. I hope I could tell the story. And I'm not using names. I think I can.
Yeah, that's fine.
And I'll use the name Perry. So
Okay, all right, yeah.
So they're going, well, Mr. Perry, he didn't live up to expectations. And another new board member on the board is reading his performance reviews, and they're all incredible. They're incredible reviews. And the guy's got all high-flying marks. And another board member who's new with me is going, well, why are we letting him go? The guy's got incredible marks. And the superintendent at the time said, well, it's very difficult because sometimes when administrators do a review, it's difficult to be harsh on them because they're in their peer group. And so, we have to look at the data under the data. So now that Mike Mascon goes, well, why do we even have reviews? and she's going, well, you have to have reviews. And he's going, but they're meaningless. If the guy has all 5-star reviews and we're still getting rid of them. And they're going back and forth. Very tense. It gets very tense. And he goes, well, who wrote this review? And before anyone could answer, I go, Mrs. Perry. which at that point, I think I let everybody on the board know, I'm here for levity. But then I learned it. And then, it's a fun thing to do.
Yeah.
Did you learned it on the job, right? I mean, you didn't know. You had a little bit of insight.
So I had worked in government. I served as chief of staff to Joe Carrillos for 4 years prior to being on the township committee. So I had an ability to have I guess a little bit of an understanding, but until you are in it and until you're the person who is at the top making that decision in the end, I was a staffer prior to that. So, you're advising and you're giving info, but, at the end of the day, it's your name and so I'll never forget this. I'm working for Joe Carrillos, and a newspaper asked Joe, and they said, for the last decade, New Jersey's property taxes have gone up this amount, right? And it's whatever astronomical amount it was. And they said, well, you need to sign on and say that you, in your next term, you will work to lower property taxes. So Joe calls up the newspaper and goes, what kind of question is this? And he goes, well, sign your name to the pledge. He's like, I've been pledging for the last 20 years to lower property taxes, but I'm in the minority. What do you want us to do down in Trenton if we can't get any of our bills heard or anything like that?
Right.
And so it should, you hate those like overarching things that are, that are so, out of reach for the individual that they're talking to that it doesn't even make sense. Right. And so, so for that, I didn't have any, any experience because it was never my name. It was never me at the end of the day. But it was me in the background. So, my first year, I'm the mayor, 2019, then 2020, the pandemic hits. And now you're learning on the job for something that nobody has had to deal with before. So,
but arguably better because they can't come see you.
Well, that made it interesting going from having hundreds of people at a meeting to having nobody at the meeting. Right. But yeah, it's certainly evolved, especially over the 6 years that I've been the mayor.
Have you had the moment? I had the moment. Have you had the moment in the meeting yet where they threatened to vote you out? Where they're yelling, "We're going to vote you out if you do that."
Yeah. Early on though.
Now, your position gets paid very little, if anything, right?
We're $4,000 a year.
Okay, so the Board of Ed gets nothing.
Right.
And you have those moments. I'll never forget this because we were at a board meeting, another non-renewal, very popular individual, but made a mistake that was critical, and it's a personnel issue. So you can't talk openly
Right. About it.
the mistake.
Yeah.
And
You know something and nobody else does.
no one knows it.
Right.
And by the way, like in a non-renewal, the board doesn't vote.
Right.
There's nothing to vote on.
Right.
But the board wants us to, the public wants us to do something. And we're at a meeting at Middletown South. It's packed. It's packed. They had cops there. I'm like, am I getting paid? Is my life in danger? They could kill me. So at the meeting, now I'm only on the board a year and a half at this point, and the meeting's getting heated. But there is no item to vote on. I don't have to do anything.
Right.
I can go home, and what's going to happen is going to happen.
Yeah.
But they want us to force the superintendent's hand, and it was an interim superintendent, and they're screaming. And I'll never forget it because they're going, yeah. And from the back, somebody said, Vinnie, we'll vote you out of office. And they're, yeah, we voted for you. You said you would stick up, and we will vote you out. And I leaned into the microphone, and I go, listen, you want to vote me out over this? You asked me to do the right thing for the district. And I am going to do the right thing for the district. There is no vote tonight.
Right.
I go, if you're asking me to do something, that would be the wrong thing. I can't tell you why. Now, the guy's in the room. I go, now, if you want to know why I have to do it, he can tell you. It's his issue. But I can't tell you. Now, they go, we'll vote you out. I go, well, start the recall petition. I'll be your first 7 signatures. And afterward, it went the way it went, and the guy was not renewed. But he called me. That guy called me at like midnight and said, I have a lot of respect. You stuck up for what you believed in. You stood up for what you believed in. And but I wondered, because I remember early on the meetings here could be contentious.
Yeah.
Now it seems the town's very happy.
Yeah, I mean, my early meetings were hot. It was contentious, but there was a lot of things that were coming to up for votes and things like that, and that were that were controversial, and we were making the decisions based on the information that we had, and that our experts were giving us the things that that you're briefed on in executive session, whether it's legal or whatever the case may be, as to why it's privileged information. But yeah, I mean, since then it's been,
I never heard anybody upset.
Yeah.
No one ever comes to. The only thing you ever hear, again, is, okay, we have a little more traffic than we had 20 years ago.
Yeah.
But that's because it's a town people want to live in.
Yeah, I mean, no one should be upset about wanting to have, a great place to live,
it's like
right?
Zero traffic in Camden. It's so easy. You just
fly right through.
You fly right through. I'm sorry, Camden. I'm sorry, Mayor. Who's the mayor of Camden now?
I don't know.
You get me on your podcast, I'll talk bad about Middletown. Until then, it's your turn.
So you're not doing any shows in Camden then?
I'm not. No.
Okay.
I've done them.
Won't do it again.
What that?
You won't do it again, though.
I would do Camden. I would do that war memorial or whatever.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and it's a great comic story, because allegedly Cat Williams on stage drew a gun on somebody at that.
No.
That's what they say. I wasn't there. I'm spreading rumors or truths. I don't know which it is. I heard it, and it fits, right?
Vinny, tell us. You bring up where performances and clubs that you've done. What's your favorite place to have done a show?
All right, it's going to sound terrible because it's the Stress Factory.
Right.
Is
Okay.
The greatest.
So your spot.
It's the room is designed by a comic, obviously, and it's run by my wife and I, and we love stand-up. So that room runs for the comic and the audience, and that's not always the case in rooms everywhere. So when you walk on stage at the Stress Factory, it's just a magic room.
Mm-hmm.
It's I call it a kill box. You get on stage, and if you're proficient, you do not want to get off that stage.
Mm-hmm.
The room is very reactive, meaning the audience is well educated as to what comedy is, and it's just a fun room. Now, if I don't count my room,
okay,
believe it or not, I had a tremendous time at the Middletown Arts Center.
Yep.
But that wouldn't be a favorite. But I love the room. I just did a room in Naples, Florida, on Tuesday night. Off the Hook Comedy, great room. Schaumburg Improv, which is Chicago, is a great, very big room. And the Washington, D.C. Improv is great.
Really?
Great room.
Where's that at in D.C.?
Oh, God. I don't remember the street because no one knows streets now, Tony. The little blue line.
You have
it's
arrived.
where the blue line stops. That's where it's
Yeah,
located.
got it. When you click that en route button, you're there.
When you're too young. When I was a kid, we knew how to. You could put me in a car, I could get somewhere. And now I've become. I don't know. Where's the driveway end? It's so terrible. So terrible, right? I mean, it's everything. The AI is everything.
Yeah.
But that improv is a great improv. And then the New York City rooms are
right.
Legendary rooms. I mean, but not the same way because they're, I did the Comedy Cellar forever, and the Cellar was a great room because a lot of great comics went there. Mm-hmm. But as a room, I never thought it was. It's never the Stress Factory.
Right.
Never that. I mean, it's fun, But so one night at the Comedy Cellar, I was actually hosting the night, and Esty, who's the booker, came to me and said, Ray Romano's coming in, and he's coming in with Doris Roberts, Brad Garrett, and Patricia Heaton. So it's the four of them. The only one not there.
The cast of
the cast.
Everyone Loves Raymond.
Only one missing was Frank Boyle.
Okay.
I had just run into Frank Boyle outside the comic strip in uptown, and I was getting a bagel at 12 o'clock at night, and there's Peter Boyle getting a bagel at H&H. And I walk in, and I look at him, I go, hey, you're Peter Boyle. And he looks up and down himself, and he goes, I am Peter Boyle. And then he walked out. That guy is wacky. So at the Cellar, Ray's going to come in. He's going to hide Brad Garrett, who's 6 foot.
Yeah.
13.
Giant. Yeah.
He's giant. Patricia and Doris Roberts are going to hide in the room. They go right in. No one's expecting to see him. They got in, no problem. Brad Garrett, they can't bring in. They hide him. And they did packed night. And so Ray's on stage. He's killing. And the gag they're going to do is after a very good punchline, Brad Garrett's going to heckle him. So Ray does the punchline. It kills. And Brad Garrett just leans into the room and goes, you stink. And everyone, oh. And Ray Romano, I'll never forget, he goes, some drunk in the back of the room. And he goes again, and he does it another minute later, you stink. And Ray goes, what's your problem, buddy? And Brad Garrett walks in the room and goes, not all about you, Raymond. In character.
Yeah.
And the place goes ballistic. And they start arguing on stage, in character, from the show. And Patricia Heaton walks up. Because boys, and they're going nuts. And then Doris Roberts walks up, and they do a 2-minute long sketch. I thought the room was going to fall apart.
Yeah.
And then they get done, and Ray and Brad finish, and then Ray finishes. And then Esty says to me, as they're leaving stage, he just annihilated, go do 10 minutes, which, you have to follow that. And so it was easy to follow because they're in such a good mood. But, yeah, that's what made that room magic, is that kind of thing happened there. But my favorite room is definitely in New Brunswick, New Jersey. Okay. My personal favorite.
When you started out in this industry, what made you get into it, and who was your favorite as you were kind of getting into it? Okay, so in 1997, 8 is when I got into the. Oh wait, 97. Wait, is that right? 89. Somewhere in there, I get into the business. And the way it happened, I was married to my first wife, and she's not watching because this is a happy podcast. She's watching maybe World War II footage. She's watching Ken Burns documentary on amputations. Something that would entertain her. So a very unhappy marriage. She was a very hard woman to be married to, and you should never. You got to know when you're marrying into a family, you have to look at the family. And most people don't because they go, well, I'm not going to. And I didn't judge her. I knew her brother was nuts. And I always said, that's him, that's not her. But here's the thing about the Hitler family. That's a great joke. I love that joke. So anyway, I'm married and I'm very unhappy.
And to be fair, I was probably a bad husband too, right? Who knows? We can't look at me now and judge me then. I mean, obviously, I turned out perfect, but there's a lot of, tinkering along the way. So I started in Eatontown, New Jersey at a Rascals open mic. I jumped on stage, loved it. The next week I went up and died. I was going to quit because I figured I'm batting 500. And the MC was Paul Vinnie, and he goes, "No, you can't quit. Last week was not supposed to happen. Tonight, you're supposed to stink until you're good. Stay with it." And I stayed with it. Well, I started wanting to do more open mics. So I went and I found a bar in New Brunswick that had a basement. I lived in North Brunswick. And I said, "Let me do an open mic on Sundays." And they let me. And it was a $5 cover charge for Rutgers students only. We were an hour north of Rascals South and an hour south of Rascals North.
Mm-hmm.
We're in the middle. But it's a $5 open mic. We're not booking anybody. And at this time in comedy, Rascals was booking Paul Reiser. I mean, I can't even think of the names. Sam Kinison, Dice Clay, Jerry Seinfeld, the biggest names were working there. And so when I started doing this open mic, Rascals gets wind of it, and they blackballed me. They blackballed me in all of New York City. I couldn't get on stage anywhere in New Jersey. They wouldn't let me on their clubs. And so now I have nowhere to work. And I decided to, because they said I was trying to be competition. And that's what made me go, "I'm going to open a room because I want to do this." And I don't believe I wanted to do it for the rest of my life. I just didn't like being blackballed.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that opened in 91. Now, flash forward 2 years later, 93, and I'm divorced, and I'm bankrupt, and I get separated. I give my wife and kids what little we have. They have the house, the car, the money. I left the house with a stereo and a futon and my clothing. I moved into a boarding house and rented a space in New Brunswick because I'm sorry, I went a little out of turn, but the building officer in New Brunswick said, "I want to show you a space. We don't want you to go out of business when I show you space." Because I had this little room in in a hotel. It was the space I did the open mic in that got me blackballed. So I rented it, renovated it. I had no car, no phone. I met Vicky in February of 95, 6 weeks after we opened. She looked at me on paper. I'm all but homeless. I have no car, no phone. But clearly, she knew what she was looking at. Tony, hang on. When you dig a diamond out of the dirt, it doesn't look like it does end up on you. It's got to be. So she knew. She knew.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, but we stayed together and we built it into what it is. But that's what, and people say to me now, it's 35 years I'm in business, 34 years, I'm sorry. And people say, "Would you plan it?" I can honestly tell you, we really didn't have this long arcing plan.
Mm-hmm.
It was always survival.
Mm.
And that's how I think that's how I got to be funny, because I'm deaf. I wear 2 hearing aids, and I was never diagnosed. So in school, when I was in high school, I couldn't hear a lot.
Right.
In football, I couldn't hear. I never. But back then, they just said, "Well, he's stupid." That's what they would say.
That's an official diagnosis.
Well, it wasn't until 41, Vicky said, "You got to go to a hearing doctor." And that's when they diagnosed me, and then they could prove I was deaf and stupid.
Oh, all right.
Both. But that's, it's really how it happened. I think that's how I got to be funny, because I had to always deflect. 'Cause I never knew what was really happening in the room. So you have to be what's happening.
Right.
I think.
So now, how many years? 34, you said?
The club is 34 years. I started in 89, so that makes me
35.
35 coming into 36 years. In October, I think it'll be, or maybe June or July, sometime in 95, it'll be 36 years that I'm doing stand-up, which it's so much fun.
So I've seen, your stand up before, and a lot of it is just inspiration from your life. I mean, that's what it is. So what is over that time, obviously you have evolved and developed. What do you think's been your greatest, storytelling, that, story that you've told that it just time after time after time, it just always killed.
So right now I'm telling a story about the farm because we have a small farm there in
Yeah.
Middletown. And that story always kills. If there's one story that killed forever, the problem for me is I move through and I'm always talking about what I'm thinking about. So there is no one story I always do.
Mm-hmm.
I think the time on the Board of Ed yielded a lot of great material. I think the time the pandemic set, it's still...
You popping out of that trash can during the pandemic.
Did you see any of my pandemic stuff?
Yeah.
Because the pandemic to me, and I get it, we did what we did. We all didn't know what we were doing. But when you look back on it, right? It's like looking back on my first marriage. I look back, what the hell was I thinking? Now, we look back on the pandemic. There was a day when groceries would come to your door. You'd be out in your front with a wipe going, okay, kids, here you go. The Fruit Loops are safe now. You're going to get diabetes the old-fashioned way. I mean, think about that. You're wiping down the most toxic food you can feed a child. Here you go. It's safe. And so you look back at that and you go, well, that had to be ridiculous, right? I was in Newark Airport, and I stood too close to someone on the TSA line. And the TSA agent yelled at me. He goes, 6 feet, sir. 6 feet. Oh, I'm so sorry. I back up. And 32 minutes later, I'm an inch and a half from the same guy on the plane. What is going on? So the pandemic was a great time to talk about. Anything I go through. Now, you had Chef Nicholas on.
Yeah.
And so I just thought of the story now, but it's a true story. Years ago, I went to Nicholas, and when it was more formal.
Right.
And for me, it's the best restaurant in the state of New Jersey. And he does an amazing job. And the second best restaurant is Victoria's Try to Tell. I know it's my place, our place, my wife and I. But I went in when it was his first Nicholas, and the waiter comes over, and he starts talking about his specials, and he forgets one, and he's going, and then he says it, whatever, Chateaubriand. And he goes, I'm so sorry, I forgot. So I'm just clowning around. I go, get me a manager. Okay. And 2 seconds later, Nicholas is at my table. I'm so sorry. I'm going, dude, I don't even know who he is yet. I'm going, I don't care. I was kidding around. I'm a comic. I didn't mean anything by it. He goes, no, still, he has to know. I'm like, please. I go, I really didn't want a manager. I really didn't. And that's how I met him.
Poor kid's been fired.
No. He's such a great guy.
Oh, yeah.
And do you eat there a lot?
Yeah.
It's always perfect.
It's the most consistent you're going to find.
It's great.
Yeah.
Talercios.
Yeah.
Who you've had on.
Eric just called me while we were sitting here.
They're great.
Oh.
We have some great businesses in Middletown. Some really great businesses.
Yeah.
My business is in New Brunswick, 732-545-4242. But so now you've got how many more years before you run again?
3-year term.
Are you going to let me run this year? Can I run? There's a seat opening up.
Who's not?
There's always a seat.
Why, you want to take over this podcast?
No. I just enjoy doing it. You're a really good host. You don't talk a lot. You don't get in my way.
That's the idea.
It's a joke, Tony. That's a joke. Don't you have more questions? You're supposed to prepare. What is going on?
I'm letting you handle it.
You're great.
So obviously your businesses, are up in New Brunswick. You choose to live in Middletown. You have, a great house, a great property, and I know you're always looking for the next spot to be. But just being here in Middletown, when during the pandemic, I called you up and I asked you to do a set for the employees here, because obviously it was yeah. I'll never forget. I called Vinnie up and I said, hey, we're having an employee picnic or something like that, and I said, and you're gonna be the you're gonna be the final thing for the day, okay? so Vinnie says, yep, I'll do it. So he comes. It's at Croydon Hall. It's in the middle of the summer. And everybody's in the bleachers. And Vinny opens up and he says, I really appreciate the mayor inviting me. My business has now been closed down, in the state for the last 8 months. Haven't gotten a paycheck, and he says, and he asked me to do a free gig. So I really appreciate him inviting me here today.
It was great because I remember when he asked me, I said, "Well, what's the budget?" And you're like, "Budget?" No, I was happy to do it. I'm going to say it. As a Middletown resident, you asked me if I choose to live in Middletown, and I do. My kids went to Middletown schools. My daughter ran at Michigan. My other one's at Michigan. My third one will be at Michigan. The school system is great. I'm telling you, I love Middletown.
Yeah.
Love everything about it. That's why I want to get on the council committee, whatever you call it. I don't care what you call it. I want to get on there and screw things up.
Who's? I'll tell Heibel. All right, I'll tell Rick Heibel.
Hi, I'm Bob Seamer, a Vietnam War veteran and member of the Middletown Township Veterans Affairs Committee, and last year's recipient of the Dennis J. Beauregard Veteran of the Year Award. Each year, we ask the community to nominate a Middletown veteran for this prestigious award. It was introduced in 2022 and named after my friend and fellow veteran, Dennis J. Beauregard. Dennis is the chairman of the Veterans Affairs Committee and a passionate advocate for veterans in our town and across the state. During this season of giving, we ask you to consider which Middletown veteran you would like to give this award to. We are looking to recognize someone who advocates for those who have honorably served our country and continues to go the extra mile through acts of selfless service. These post-military career acts of service can include things like volunteering in the community, hospital visitations, and charity work. The Veterans Affairs Committee will be accepting nominations through Friday, December 20th. To learn more about the award criteria and how to submit your nomination, please visit middletownnj.org/VOTY. Thank you.
So getting back to the comedy real quick. So, I brought you up yesterday to somebody because you told a story once that I won't even bring up on here. But, this poor soul was going to get his colonoscopy yesterday. And you did the whole routine at the Middletown Arts Center.
Yes. So you asked me. Now, that is a fun story. I haven't done it in a long time because I'm just not talking about it now.
Yeah.
But when I remember that story, I love that story because it's a true story. And if you haven't gotten a colonoscopy, and I told you this off the air, you haven't gotten one yet. You're too young. You are missing the greatest nap ever. The prep is terrible. You're going to come out of it going, let's do this again Monday. It is really, you wake up, I work a lot. You wake up refreshed. Now, when you do prep, I want you to know something. There are some things about that prep that are very misleading. Now, the first prep I ever did, and I'm not going to say my doctor's name. He's going to retire soon. He's a great guy. But they told me when you're ready to do the procedure, we're going to fax you. That's how long ago it was. Fax you the directions. Okay. Follow them. So I'm at home. I have a meeting the next day with the doctor, and my fax machine lights up, and here come the directions, and I go and I get everything, and I do the prep. Now, the first thing is, there's flavors. Okay, like there's a lemon flavored one you could drink.
Okay.
And I like lemon, and I got lemon, and so I remember drinking it, going, "Who the hell tasted this in a lab and said, yeah, that's lemon?" Okay, this thing tasted like a colonoscopy. It was awful. It was so bad. 1 to 2 hours later, all right, and so I drank it. I'm at my kitchen sink. I'll never forget it. And also, they tell you on the directions, do not sample, drink it in one straight thing, and that's very
Don't
accurate.
Sample it.
They tell you don't sip it first.
Oh, okay.
Get it all down.
Just go for it.
I sipped it. I'm telling you, I almost canceled the whole thing. It tasted so bad. So I drank it all, and I'm at my counter, and I remember thinking, okay, I got to go sit and watch TV for an hour or so and let this work. And I'm telling you, seconds later, I'm like, oh boy, like with this thing. I apparently have a very fast system, very fast. And I can't do the rest of the story here, but I can tell you that, you evacuate. There are things you forgot. I mean, I had, when I was very young.
You found Jesus.
I found a skate key. You are clean. And when you think you're done, you're not. You're not. You're not done until you have abs. And that's how long it takes. Now, the next day I go in. I'm in the office. And I go up to the nurse and I go, I'm here for my colonoscopy. I'll never forget this. She goes, your colonoscopy's not today. Today's just an office visit. I go, no, today's my colonoscopy. She goes, no, it isn't. I go, yes, it is. She goes, no. I go, lady, I did the prep. I'm clean as a whistle. We're doing this today. And she goes, we can't do this today. We need to just get done in a surgical suite. I'm like, I don't need a suite. Give me a room with a dead hooker. I don't care how we get it done, but I'm not going through that again. And she goes, I don't know why you did the prep. And I go, because you faxed me last night the prep. She goes, no, I didn't. And she opens my folder and she's looking at it. I'll never forget it. She goes, That's what she said. I go, yeah. She goes, Mr. Brand, I'm terribly sorry. I don't know why I sent that to you. And I go, well, I don't care why you sent it. We're going in, okay? You fire up a tube, lady, because we're doing this. And they can't. I'm in the office. I go see the doctor, and he goes, well, today is just a regular exam to see if you're okay. I go, so what are we doing? He goes, are you okay? I go, yeah. He goes, all right, well, I'll see you next week. I'm like, that's it? This is just a copay suck? This is what you did? And so then you go do the colonoscopy, and luckily mine have all been, very good.
Yeah.
I'm clean. He's going to retire. I'm going in for one before he retires. Because I do it every they say every 5 years.
Yeah.
It's in your family. And I always do it every 3 years. And he always says to me, well, I can't get that approved unless you have symptoms. I go, what do you need to hear? Whatever you need to hear, that's what I got. And so we get it approved. But he said to me one day, Vinnie, this is a very slow-growing cancer if you get it. And let me ask you a question, Doc. What cancer do you think would be slow enough that I would wait 5 years?
Right.
And he goes, you had a good point. So get it done. You're
34.
Yeah, you're a little ahead of the curve. But, you probably had a bad diet your whole life. And I think that we're getting serious for a minute here. They're going to roll that back eventually. And they're going to say start doing it at 34 or 30.
Right. Okay.
Because if you get it young, it tends to be even worse. And you look a little pale.
Because I'm dying for oxygen.
I'm only kidding. I'm terrible. I'm a horrible human.
Your stand-up you're doing now, what are you talking about?
So,
what are you focusing on?
Recently I just decided, I don't know why. I've always been clean. I've never been dirty. But a lot of my kids' friends follow me on social media, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Grindr. And I don't know why you're laughing, Tony. And so they follow me everywhere. And so I everything I'm doing now is clean. And I'm now I'm exploring my wife's vet bills, which we have 5 dogs. And I'm pet poor. I mean, I'm pet poor. And so I'm talking about that a little bit. And the topics wouldn't necessarily sound as funny as the story, but the stories are great. So you're 34, you have a dog.
No.
You have no dogs.
No.
No animals.
No animals.
So smart. So people nowadays, they bring their dogs to the vet. My wife's always bringing a dog to a vet. I'm of an age where we didn't do that. My father was a plumber. We didn't even have vaccines. There was no way. When we were kids, if someone got sick in the house, like measles, my mother would send you into the sick room so everyone had it in 1 week.
Right.
She's not going to take care of measles for a month.
Well, that's how we did chickenpox. Yeah.
Flu, Ebola, get in the room. Get in the room and get it. And so we never took dogs to vets. Yeah, I remember my dog TJ got sick, and I said, "Dad, TJ's sick. What are we gonna do?" And he goes, "We're gonna get a puppy." Like, no way. We're spending money on a dog to go to a doctor. And so, I'm talking about my wife and that, and I talk a little bit about my children. I love talking about youth sports because my kids are playing. And you know the way. How old are yours?
4 is the oldest.
Are they playing soccer yet?
I mean, playing soccer, or are they running around a field and chasing?
Are they training with anyone yet?
No.
Tony, you're behind the curve.
Oh, okay.
You know, but I'm saying that facetiously because what happens is you go into youth sports and it's insanity. It's insanity. Because everyone's getting a scholarship. You have to train. Start younger. So I explore that a little bit because it's fun for me. And I don't know if you know how to ruin youth sports. Do you know how to ruin it?
No.
Bring adults, because that's, so I talked about that now. Maybe some different things about my father. Religion is always a fun topic for me. So, I get up there and I kind of meander and have fun. When I was younger, I pulled over a bunch of drunk drivers. I was never a cop. Tony, I won't do it anymore because the union won't back me up, but because I'm not a cop. But the first time it ever happened, I pulled a guy over on River Road in Piscataway, and that guy was going to kill somebody. He almost killed me, and I swerved out of the way. And I was in a little Toyota Tercel, yellow, beat up. I was selling construction. I had 3 little kids, and it was 11:30 at night, and he was coming at me. When he went by me the other way, I whipped around and chased him. I don't even know why, but I started high beaming him like mad. And when he pulled over, all I want to do is get him out of the car and drive him home. I don't want him to kill somebody.
Yeah.
But when I go up to his car, he's mad, and he goes, "Who the F are you?" And I don't know what happened. I'm a young guy, and I just said, license, registration, and insurance card. And when I said it, he snapped up and became very serious and malleable. And I was able to get him in my car and bring him home and save somebody, maybe him. And I then just had this notion that you should help people. And so I've pulled over like 4 or 5 drunk drivers. The stories are all ridiculous. So I talk about that. My wife thinks that I'm nuts, but someone's got to do it.
Someone's got to be that crazy.
Okay, tell me what you do. I'm driving down the parkway a couple months ago.
Yeah.
Right in front of me, a car hits another car, and the car turns over, flips and slides, and ends up on its hood.
Okay.
And cars are veering around it. Now, what do you do?
Pull over and get out.
Another guy did it. We yanked that guy out of his car. And my wife goes, "Well, you could have been killed." I said, "Yeah, but that guy could have been killed."
Yeah.
And so, that's what makes you a good guy. You go do it.
Right.
You got to do it.
Yeah.
And so but the stories are, when I'm doing them, they're fun. That one's not. There's nothing funny happened that day.
Right. I was hoping that wasn't a joke or anything like
No,
that.
No, nothing funny happened. The most serious one happened a year and a half ago. There was a car, there was an accident, a little, fender bender, but they stopped in the slow lane of the turnpike right after exit 10. So between 10 and 11.
Yeah.
And I pull over, and they're in the slow lane, and they're both not getting out of their car, and cars are whipping by.
Mm-hmm.
And I go over, and the guy's car was stuck closed. I get the door open, I get him out. I go to the other guy, and he's very disoriented. And he's going, what happened? What happened? I go, "I got to get out of the car." And he's going, no, I have to go home. And I get the car door open, I unbuckle him, and I forcibly but nicely take him out of the car. We were out of the car 2 seconds, someone rear-ended the car really hard.
No way.
Yeah, really hard. And my wife goes, "You could have been killed." And I'm like, "Stop going through the insurance policies every time I do something nice." So I said, "What are you doing? You got your yellow highlighter out."
Making sure it's covered.
Yeah, she's looking for it. So, but that's, so I'm always talking about what's in my mind and on my mind. Yeah, come see a show. I would love that.
That's amazing.
When's the last time you saw me? At that?
Probably at the Mac event.
So, I owe them. I have to call the Mac. I feel bad because the guy called me and wanted to do movies. He wanted to do a movie, and I'm going to call him because I'd like to do comedy there for him. Not necessarily even just me, but other comics. Because the Mac is great.
It's great.
It's great. But he wanted to show Blazing Saddles, and I didn't want to show it.
Oh.
Because we were still in the throes of that woke. And even though the movie is a great
And how many
critically
years old?
acclaimed
You know, yeah,
movie.
yeah,
It's still moments in that movie that I'm like, I don't know that you want to
right,
just enjoy that at home.
yeah. Let's
Close
pick
the
another
doors,
film.
Turn all your devices off and laugh at Mel Brooks. But so that's what I'm up to. I don't know how I got on the subject. I apologize.
How do people find out what shows are happening at the Stress Factory?
So you go to stressfactory.com. If you follow on Instagram, you go to Vinnie_Brand. I've been having a lot of fun at the door of the club. People come in.
Oh, you're like checking their IDs and everything, right?
Check their IDs. It's I think that it started for me after the pandemic, because the pandemic made us very, very cooperative. It really did. I mean, when you think back, could you imagine me telling you, yeah, stand on a dot to get a cup of coffee? And the whole country goes, okay, on my dot. And
My personal favorite was the arrows in the supermarket.
so ridiculous. So ridiculous. The arrows in the supermarket. And, I don't know if you remember, but it's true. Every aisle was marked.
Right.
But at the end of every aisle, you could go left or right.
Right.
So at the end was a crapshoot.
Yeah.
You could run right into somebody.
Flip of a coin.
You flip a coin. So anyway, the funny thing, the thing that I always remember about the pandemic, they shut down Home Depot, and for just a couple weeks, there was a kid out front with a clicker, and he would count the number of people in. Do you
Yeah.
remember that?
Yeah, sure.
And so that was the new standard, and they would also disinfect your cart.
Right.
And it only lasted like a week or two. And then the clicker and the disinfectant went away. And it always struck me as like, well, okay, what meeting did they say? Yeah,
Clicker's not working.
the joke I always did was, and it's true, in the beginning of the pandemic, there was no disinfectant anywhere.
Right.
You couldn't buy anything. Toilet paper, you couldn't. My wife, we got to get toilet paper. The world's going to run out of toilet paper. I'm like, we have 10 drawers of mismatched socks. We're fine. We're fine. Okay, we're going to be fine. So, but, the disinfecting thing, you would go in the store, there was no disinfectant. And the kid out there with a tank sprayer, just a mystery fluid that he's just squirting. And everybody just, I'm safe now. And the joke I always did was, what'd you put on that cart? Did you put Clorox? Nah, we're out of Clorox. Did you use Lysol? Nah, pandemic on, we're out of Lysol. What'd you use? Roundup. You're not dying from the pandemic. You're gonna die the old-fashioned way with cancer. I mean, the pandemic, to me, was collectively the funniest moment as a nation. And when you do the jokes, I would always be careful not to offend, because people died, not to offend the disease or people. I did everything very seriously. I followed all the advice. Yeah, I got the booster. I got the vaccine, the booster. I got the virus. I did everything they told me to do. And so I never joke about that. But, when you think about what comedy is, it's this collective understanding. So what was more collective? That, and of course, I am talking about the election, which, right now, it makes me, it's almost, to me, because I can't take anything too seriously, when I watch the Democrats flipping out, going, we're trying to figure out what happened. And I'm at home going, I know exactly, he got more votes. That's what happened. Okay, like, how do you not know that? And so the election's funny to me. People's reaction, Trump supporters hate Harris supporters hate Trump supporters. All of that is a funny playing field, because it's ridiculous to hate someone because their political views are different, right? Tony and I have many shared political views, but we have a couple that are different. Share all of our political beliefs, because if everyone agreed with me, the world would be just as screwed up. You need the other side to bounce back and forth. Now, as a comic, that playground of ridiculousness, right? When you see people wigging out, one of my favorite jokes I'm doing now, and this should tell you how unserious I am about it all, but And we're 2 weeks in now. This is not a joke. It did not rain for 91 days before the election.
Okay.
He got elected. It rained 4 days instantly. The guy fixed the weather. Okay, so he's clearly I'm being a goofball, right? And then I go, I'll look at a Harris supporter and say, "Do you think the world's going to fall apart?" And they'll go, "Yes, I do." And they're very serious. And I go, "Come on, nothing's really going to change. Not like your 401k is going to go up 30% in 2 weeks." And I go, "Oh wait, that happened. But let me ask you something else." And so, again, it's all for me designed to lower that and just laugh because really the ride's short, right?
Yeah.
I mean, take all the joy you can out of this world and laugh all you can. So, you ask me what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. That's how I talk about it. No one should take their political beliefs from a comic anyway, right? I mean, you're watching a guy. I didn't finish college. My children finished. My wife finished. My wife has her master's. I fell in love with University of Michigan. My kids are there.
Mm-hmm.
I love Rutgers as well. Fell in love in Michigan. I said to my wife, "I want to go finish up my degree, and I'm going to do it from Michigan." And she said, "Why? You don't need to. You're viewed as successful." And I said, "But I didn't graduate, and it bothers me, right? Like you can say you graduated. Everyone we know graduated. It bothers me a bit that I can't tell people I graduated." And without skipping a beat, she goes, "Just tell people you graduated." And I go, "What?" She goes, "No one's checking." And I'm like, "No, you're applying for a job." And so I like that level of seriousness, just easy. Thank you for having me, by the way.
Well, let me tell you, this has been one of the tops for me.
Oh, that's so nice. I was hoping I did better than Nicholas, right?
Well, Nicholas talked about how he, got into the restaurant business, which is obviously, different and a lot of nuances that go into it, but had some comedic parts to it. Did you listen to the podcast?
I didn't, but I will because I like him a lot. I like you a lot. I like Talercia's a lot. I'll listen to all your podcasts.
Yeah.
I'll listen to them all because I want to stack myself up too.
Yeah.
And try and figure out why I'd be invited back. That's the big thing.
You're invited back.
Great job with them.
Thank you. Thanks. Vinnie Brand, owner of the Stress Factory. Check it out, stressfactory.com. Go up, support a Middletown guy, a great guy, great family man, and somebody that is absolutely going to make you cry because you're going to be laughing so hard. You are listening to Middletown's official podcast, locally sourced. We have been laughing our butts off here with Vinnie Brand from the Stress Factory. Check us out. Next episode number 10. I don't know how we're going to top this one, but locally sourced coming at you in 2 weeks.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Vinny.